So I'm Reese, Director of Strategic Initiatives from Leading Forward. And what we do is we're an online and mobile platform that connects businesses with excess food to recover it and give it to communities in need instantly. So you can think of us as an on-demand food recovery service. In 2 years, we have fed over 600,000 people and have recovered over 700,000 pounds of food in just the Bay Area. And what we're looking to do next is feed 1 million and move to every major city in the United States.
I'm David. I'm product development for Back to the Roots, and Back to the Roots is a retail company that reconnects people to the food they eat, and we do that through making products that engage people in that larger food system. We have 2 lines. One is a ready-to-grow line, which basically is like a gateway to growing your own food. It's an all-in-one package that makes it easy to grow and kind of get your foot in the door. It also engages you in understanding where food comes from, and I think this was our first product ever, and it came from the kind of Nico and Alex, our co-founders, realization that they didn't actually know where their food came from, and they were Berkeley grads, and so they made an mission for their company to reconnect people and inform them, because they could really connect to that ignorance that many people experience. And then we have a ready-to-eat line, which is basically a cereal line and breakfast toppers right now, and that engages people in the larger food system through transparency and through simplicity. We make food with minimal ingredients, and so the idea is that there's a lot of information overload, and so part of transparency is also simplicity, so that you can get the whole story. And so we make the cereals 3 ingredients: whole wheat, sea salt, and sugar cane, minimally processed, and transparent sourcing, so you can get the whole story there as well.
My name is Geethika Agarwal. I work at La Cocina. We're a nonprofit based in the Mission, and we work and incubate food businesses run by primarily women, all low-income immigrant entrepreneurs. We've been doing that for about 10 years. Today, we worked with a lot of entrepreneurs. We've formalized 67 businesses, 47 of which are still operating today. We've got 12 folks that have brick and mortars that you can go out and eat at tomorrow, and then a whole bunch that do nationally distributed products.
I'm Eric. I'm representing Urban Pharmacy. We're an education organization focusing on farming and entrepreneurship. We primarily work in East Oakland with Castlemont High School, and most recently we converted a former gun range into an indoor hydroponic lettuce farm with the students there. So.
Hi, I'm Louis. I'm an entrepreneur and a food activist. I express my food activism through Slow Money. There's a table upstairs if you want to find out about it. I express my food activism through entrepreneurship. I just launched a concept called Local. And on the one hand, we want to create a channel for local and artisanal food, which is not existent right now because of the high barriers to entry to the food system for local food. And as well, on the other hand, create more access to farm fresh food. Farm fresh food should be accessible to all, not just those who can afford the time and money to go to the farmer's market or the farm-to-table restaurant.
Beautiful. So, one thing we talked about in our pre-meeting was the application of technologies to create efficiencies within systems. So, using technology in that way. I wonder if, trying to see who they hit first. I think, Louis, if you could really talk about the local standpoint, because I remember we had some really engaging conversations around, sort of really disruptive conversations actually around like, how do we get rid of these middlemen, so to speak, and how to actually get higher quality food and actually make it cheaper for communities. So can you talk a little bit about how local is approaching that and you're utilizing technology in that sense?
Yes, we have taken an approach where rather than throw technology at what exists, we took a step back and looked at whether there were some changes to be brought to the system, or maybe redesigning the system and applying technology to that. And what we realize is that today's food is made for shipping rather than being made for eating. Food is developed on margin and shelf life, and it should be developed on taste, nutrition, and seasonality. So how can we use technology then, rather than improve a very centralized and distribution-heavy system, whereby our food travels on average 1,500 miles to get to our table, we create a system where food comes directly from our local sources and we can give access to farm fresh food. In essence, we're trying to take the farmer's market experience or product and quality into the 21st century and make it available 7 days a week in ways that are meeting today's consumers' need for convenience and speed and efficiency. And we are convinced that fast food does not need to be junk food. And we can use smart technology, efficient processes, and system that brings the food system into the modern world. If when you put up the subject of entrepreneurship and food and technology, I thought about how our food system is at the same level as when the computer industry was into the mainframe era, right? There were huge computers that occupy the size of this room, and that today we have something in our pocket that does the same thing. And in the food system, we have these huge factories that churn out food that's made to sit on a shelf, that has no nutrition, taste, that we've been deprived of that quality, and that there's means with technology to completely reverse and change that. And that's what we're looking for.
That's beautiful. And as we know, yeah, you guys clap for that. I mean, because also we talk about technology, we talk about design in some ways as well, right? So what I was really impressed with, back to the roots, was the design. You know, if we can hold that up again, I mean, the accessibility of this, when I first learned about this, I was like, oh, okay, wow, this is a good education platform. But I just wanted to say, like, you wanted to talk about the background and like how you guys came, your team came to, you're going to deliver this product in this way, you're going to design it in this way.
Yeah, so whenever we are designing the packaging for our products, we always look to minimize or use materials that are recyclable or made from renewable sources. So the cereal box is a transition from what you see in traditional stores. This does not have a bag in it, and so we are using about 30% less packaging than traditional bag-in-the-box. And the upside of that is it also looks different, and so it catches people's eye in stores. So the upside of kind of always designing to reduce is a bit of a challenge, and what ends up happening is giving the opportunity to innovate. And so anytime we're creating a new product, we look at what else is out there, but we look at how we can do it better and reduce, and that ends up being a unique look.
Awesome. And Justin, for some reason I'm going one by one this one. This is great. So actually, with just transparency, I work with Eric at Urban Pharmacy, and it's really beautiful to witness young folks in East Oakland say, I don't really do math, and they end up doing really complex mathematics and really getting in on the design and build process. In terms of efficiencies, you're really avid supporter and promoter of vertical farms. Can you give us some of these really cool examples of how that's creating more efficiency in the food systems globally, and also how it relates to what we're creating in terms of social efficiency, social justice and efficiency in East Oakland?
Sure. Well, I just want to first point out that I'm not, I'm a big advocate of vertical farming, but I don't advocate that it's, a silver bullet solution for, the inefficiencies in the food system. However, because vertical farms take advantage of three-dimensional space, it means that they can be much more efficient with land. Like we see down in Salinas, right? Tons and tons of land devoted to lettuce, which is, it's good to put on a hamburger or a sandwich, but it's not very high-calorie crop. So, as population increases, it doesn't seem to make much sense to use so much land to produce something that's so little sort of nutritional or calorie value. And also because urban farms use soilless technology, which means that plants just grow in a nutrient solution, and that nutrient solution is recycled. That hydroponics uses 90% less water, so that's especially relevant when talking about the drought, like we have currently in California and in areas throughout the world that are especially drought prone. And as far as sort of pointing to the like how vertical farms can contribute to social equity and economic development, part of the history of why we see a lot of abandoned space in lower income communities throughout the country is that a lot of sharecroppers from the south, moved to industrial areas for jobs. Like for example, in Oakland and Richmond, it was shipbuilding during the war. Those things are now gone, and we're left with a lot of unused space. Now, what do we do with that space? I think we can all agree that manufacturing is not returning to the United States. But since we do need to think how to produce food closer to urban areas or within urban areas as our population urbanizes, we can use that space to produce food in an especially efficient way when it comes to land and water resources. When it comes to electricity, renewable energy sources, the cost of those are going down as we see things like Tesla with their power walls and Solar City and these other companies growing. So it's not a perfect solution right now, but I think in 5 to 10 years it will be a large part of the urban food ecosystem.
Beautiful. And obviously, we had Dana earlier, she was talking about food waste, food shift, 40% of food waste in the United States. We're still having trouble feeding everyone. I just wanted Reese here from Feeding Forward, just give us an example how your organization uses technology to increase the capacity to find solutions for food waste.
Right, and to that point, start with some statistics. Is 40% of the food in the U.S. today that is produced goes to waste. That is 365 million pounds of food every single day across America. And to put that into perspective, it's a stadium, a football stadium full of food. And it's not like your leftover pad thai. It's untouched, totally edible food that's being thrown out for various reasons, whatever it might be. So what Feeding Forward is focusing on is, that big number of, we have 9 billion people on the planet, how are we going to feed everybody? And for us, it's not really more about producing more, it's about how we waste less. So the technology that we've done has figured out that this is first and foremost not a food abundance problem, it's a logistics problem. We can't get the food that's sitting there from point A to point B to communities that need it. So we have built out, a backup algorithm. I'll spare you the details on the data, but working on figuring out in real time how to get food that is perishable but still edible within a few hours, moving from point 1 to point 2. And in San Francisco, it's a very condensed area, so it's pretty easy to find businesses that have excess food within a mile of communities that need it. In different cities, it's going to be a little bit different, context specific, but in San Francisco, you'll find that some of the biggest tech companies are feeding their employees every single day, and half a mile down is a tender going people on the side of the street paying for the food that they're about to throw out because they have no one else to do with. So that's what our technology does. We're also working with companies to not only symptomatically fix the problem of moving it from point A to point B, but also structurally fixing the issue that businesses don't know how to get closer to zero waste. So we have a lot of data and analytics on the back end that are making them more efficient, understanding disposable costs, understanding overproduction costs, seeing patterns over time, and working with Feeding Forward so that they stop ordering excess food. Not only about redistributing it, but getting them to stop from point 1.
Beautiful. You get another. We have time for that algorithm too. If you no.
If you really want to.
And last but not least, we have Katika from La Cocina, local, right here in the Mission, and obviously you work with a lot of entrepreneurs and budding entrepreneurs and really facilitate their growth. But how are you utilizing technology in that space, and how's your program actually designed to actually be efficient in itself?
So I think our entrepreneurs, it's an interesting relationship with technology. I mean, food and entrepreneurship, there's a lot of technology solutions coming out there with online marketplaces and catering channels that are, in a way they connect people to new markets, but they also are middlemen and they take 20 to 30% of that margin. And then on the other hand, there's crowdfunding and things like that that enable small business. And then I think there's like a third category of technologies that are coming out that enable small businesses, and those are more like operational ones, like HR solutions like Zen Payroll and Zen Benefits, and also Square is probably one of the most famous ones as far as like a small business technology that a lot of operators have latched onto. And I think it's an interesting dynamic when you're working with low-income entrepreneurs. I think one of the first things that I noticed when I started doing this job is how much the technology tends to be designed for the end customer, and that's often very different than, and even if you forget about low-income entrepreneurs for a second, it's often not designed with a food entrepreneur in mind. Like, food people are on their feet 12 hours a day, and then they're supposed to come home and then they come home and try to do their email and all of that. And so just even like and especially in San Francisco, people's patience around email and electronic communication, it's really interesting to watch the entrepreneurs manage all of that. Where I see them getting the most benefit, it actually is more in these operational technology. It's starting to get overwhelming to figure out which ones actually are beneficial for the entrepreneur in the end. But when you think about things like accounting and keeping track of your invoices and so on, that's really simple, kind of boring stuff, maybe not very sexy to talk about on a panel, but when you talk about a small business owner that's running around doing everything, those are the ones where I see them really getting a lot of efficiency. The ones where I see them really struggle are things, honestly, like crowdfunding, where a lot of the success of that is based on your own personal social capital as the person running the campaign. And when you look at a low-income entrepreneur, they have really strong networks, but their networks are also not on the computer. They're going to feel weird about like putting a credit card number, and they might not have a credit card number. They might not even understand like where's their money going, how's that going to work, and so they'll be like, can I just give you some cash on the side? Like, how do I do this? So, it's difficult to talk about it. I think one of the things that we try to do as an organization is stay ahead of all of the technology. I think something that's kind of scary is sometimes things that, especially around giving people credit, are positioned as beneficial for a small business owner or an entrepreneur, but then they can get themselves into tricky financial situations. So it's just all over the map. I think the other one to mention, obviously, is like the rise of all these online catering. It's crazy to watch. Every month we get, there's like 3 new ones that come to the kitchen and talk to our entrepreneurs. And in ways they're really great. They're connecting to new business. The newest trend we've seen is online caterers now that don't require the entrepreneur to fulfill the order. They'll come and pick it up. And actually, it's really interesting that it's employed by ex-Uber drivers. They got tired of Uber, so then now they drive for Zesty and these technology. And so it's just I'm interested in watching that play out, because in a way it's really great, but in a way what really concerns me is that the businesses aren't building their brand. The online channels are building their brand, so I think that that's kind of still something, because at the end of the day, I think the strongest local food systems are one where you know where your food's coming from or who's making your food, and you have that connection. So it's complicated.
Yeah, and I think it's beautiful what you just laid out. We live in we live in an Uber, Lyft centric society. Add-ons and plugins to people's businesses, right? That they're sort of operating some of those channels that people would have in house, and they would be operating and looking over. This is a question for whoever on the panel too. Where do you see this going? How are we, with your own individual businesses or even the youth or the young people we're working with, sort of preparing ourselves and preparing the young people or preparing the budding entrepreneurs to where's the balance at? How we help them find that line between technology that's out there, but also find their own soul within their own business, their own proposition, and the passion they want to create in the world. And that's a loaded question. So out there, this technology.
Yeah, that's a big question. There's a lot there. I think that as the market is being disintermediated, it'll create more and more opportunities, because it'll be less in the hands of a few players and more available all around. And technologies are playing a big role in that regard. So if we can use technology to move aside distributor, broker, and wholesaler, then we have much more direct relationships with many more people being involved and having opportunities. Whereas now it's all centralized and channeled into the hands of a few companies. So that's one way, and to your point, the technologies that are now available are making it easier for entrepreneurs to go in. Other technology that I like that you didn't mention is to lower the cost of doing business, sometimes with credit card payments with companies like Voila and so on. So, being innovative and opening up the market will create opportunities.
Awesome. So that's one.
I think the other thing that I'd say is, the one thing that we try to encourage our entrepreneurs to do is to just understand what they're using. So if you're working with, an online catering broker, just understanding your margins, just like you would to another store when you put in a catering bid. And similarly with, it sounds really basic, but just there is this tendency to just sign up for a lot of stuff because people are using all different things. And I've noticed that at the end of the day too, it's really about networks. I watch, at Latvia, there's a community of entrepreneurs. They learn a little bit from the staff, but they learn a lot more from each other. And so it's really interesting to watch, when one entrepreneur starts making money on one channel, they'll often become the information resource and propagate that way. And I think it's just kind of I think that's really important still, is to keep just making sure you understand how things work, how they're beneficial, what the pitfalls might be, and then they can really be very valuable tools.
Right, and have you had anybody come through and say, hey, they actually want to be that online catering, for their business, want to be that online catering, that particular interface, create that, space as well. It's actually, so you talked about some people are working with online catering companies as auxiliary to their business. Do you see, entrepreneurship within La Cocina, for example, in these communities, hey, how do we actually get into that space to be, creators of that application?
It's
well.
been interesting. I know Farmago was going to be here. We have one or two companies that are starting to try to use technologies like Farmago to do drop-off meals themselves. It's still really nascent, and I think part of that is because of kind of the other thing, there's a lot of things to talk about, is just, it's one thing to be a technology company and another thing to be a small business owner making food, and I think it's a really tricky thing, and I think that the couple businesses that have played with that business models, they come from very different, honestly, they have higher social capital, for lack of a better word,
I'm so glad you pointed that out, because I think that's one of the tensions, and a lot of creativity comes out of it as well, for new innovations. I don't know if you want to speak to that, or maybe something that
I can speak to it. So, Back to the Roots is only a company of about 12 to 15 employees, and yet we have just tripled the number of products that we're offering in the last 6 months. And the reason that we are able to do that is because we know what we're good at, and we look to partners to take on what they're good at. And so I think technology can play a role in that, and then also if people or other companies recognize that you're good at something, they will want to help you succeed, and they'll bring their expertise to the table because they can benefit from your success, essentially. And so we're a small company in terms of people, but we're growing really fast, and it's because we focus on what we're good at, and what we're not as good at, we let our partners take care of it.
That's beautiful. And in closing out, we got to close out. But I'm really curious about, in terms of feeding forward your business model. I think a lot of social entrepreneurs out there, we all want to make money off of efficiency, right? We're like, well, how do we actually increase profitability, but actually also create trade sustainability in our ecosystems and for our communities? How are you guys actually doing that?
That's a loaded question. Well, to your point, we've also focused on what we're good at and what we're not good at. Instead of trying to onboard an entire driver fleet of our own to move things from point A to point B, we're exploring the option, but we'd rather utilize existing structures like Uber, Lyft, Postmates, DoorDash, because it's already there. And so that allows us to be more efficient, spend more time on what we're good at. But also because we figured out a way to incentivize businesses. There's this strange psychology behind donating food and then also paying for a donation. So a lot of people are a little bit baffled by that. But once they understand the sort of value points that we bring to a business, they're a lot more on board. First and foremost, that there's a tax write-off for any business that is going to be donating food. The IRS has a cash conversion equation that's very complicated, and based on the weight of the food and the type of the food, businesses get that money back. So first and foremost, their money is coming right back to them, at least the majority of the time. Then there's other things that incentivize businesses to work with us, like PR opportunities. There's a lot of companies out there that are excited to be sustainable, to be double bottom line companies, and saying that they work with Feeding Forward is something else that they're ready to put out there. One company that we work with is NeoSpeech, and they're a text-to-speech company that works in a capacity of technologies, but we work with a lot of organizations. A lot of the recipients that we have are not tech savvy, whereas the people that are donating the food are very tech savvy. So we had to figure out a way to streamline that communication between the two. So NeoSpeech is another company that's allowed us to be more efficient, bring them in, incentivize businesses. So there's a variety of value points, but I think that the foundation of it is figuring out what's important to a business, what speaks to their values, their ethos of a company, and turning Feeding Forward towards that.
Awesome, beautiful. Yes, I'm getting the guys in the back, so we got to wrap it up. But thank you so much, everyone. Give a round of applause to our panelists up here.